What is happening? Welcome to another episode of The Craft. My name is Nick Pollack, and I'm just getting word that we have a special guest this week. Oh my gosh, it's Eno Sarris of The Athletic. Eno, I can't believe we got you.
I know. Took time out of my busy schedule.
You're so kind. You're actually in the middle of a 3 podcast marathon. You're going on with Lance Brzezowski after this. Oh my gosh. Make sure you guys listen to that one
Friend
as
of the
well.
pod.
Oh man. Oh my gosh. It's going to be great.
Lance Brzezowski, friend of the craft.
Oh yeah. And yeah, he's been on, of course, Lance Brzezowski too. And we got an interesting one because we have, of course, our preseason projections to say, hey, cool, this is what we expect. And then now it's the middle of June and there are some updates. And we want to highlight those who are the biggest risers of those projections and who are the ones who, well, the projections aren't liking so much anymore. I love when you bring things like this. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great because I'm going to disagree heavily. Cannot wait with all of it. So as I get my sleeves up. But before we look at these quickly, were there certain guys that you expected to appear on these lists that didn't show up actually?
Ooh, that's a hard one to answer. I think that might come out while we were talking. But
Okay.
the biggest faller, the number one faller, was absolutely who I thought would be at the top of the list.
Yeah. That does not surprise me in the slice. And all right,
put that person in your head, and you'll get to know in just a second. These are oopsie projections, thanks to Jordan Rosenblum, and they are stuff powered, and so that's why I thought they'd be interesting because they're going to have slightly bigger changes in rest of season projections than other projection systems that are really going to, call back to your larger sample of numbers and use results and regress those heavily. Stuff-driven projections are going to move a little faster. So I thought we might see some bigger movement. And I guess what I would, the surprise I would have is on the improving side. The bottom of our list only has guys that are improving 7 points of ERA in rest of season projection.
Yeah, that's very few guys gaining.
And I think I know why.
Oh.
The run environment, the run environment is slightly lower. The ball is dragging more. And so the entire run environment shifted towards being better the rest of season.
I mean, really, that's actually because you and I kept saying so many emails and so many phone calls to our senators to ensure that we look good when we give pitching analysis.
It is really hard, actually, when the ball is livelier. I remember 2019.
Oh God!
Especially at the beginning of the season, you're saying, "Hey, these pitchers are good," and especially like when we are helping people try to uncover diamonds in the rough, right? And so in 2019, you're like, "Hey, this guy who doesn't cost anything drafts, go and get him," and then they have like a 5.6 ERA after like 6 weeks because the ball is just flying out and like. You're scrambling at your desk trying to be like, I don't know what's going on either.
Yeah. Oh God. I gotta say, not that this happens a lot, but there are certain times that Eno and I just sit there and go, what do we do? What are we supposed to do?
Especially with injury. I feel like this year, the high end guys we thought were going to be good arms, healthy arms, a lot of them have gone down.
Well, that is a conversation I'm looking forward to having of just trying as much as I can over the last 3 years, understand what if there really are some correlations that we can really grab onto, where it comes to, is it more extension for guys when they have higher extension because it is generally more exertion? Is that because it's max effort more often, which means then they're more prone to injury or not? Is it?
I was looking at slider velocity, and the slider velo list really lines up with the fastball leader list. And so there's a lot of guys who've been hurt on both lists, but I almost felt like the slider list, the kind of 90+ mile-an-hour slider list, had more examples and was really just a graveyard of elbows to some extent. So I wonder if I was saying that I think Jeff Zimmerman needs to try and test slider velocity. But yeah, then also like since there's so many different ways to be good beyond just injury, like, there's so many different ways to be good. Like the other side of that is there's so many ways to be bad.
Yeah, there's so many ways.
So we're like, I love this guy because he has lots of pitches.
Well,
and then you're like, they're all bad.
So I got distracted a little because I tried to in my head imagine a graveyard full of elbows and not think of just like boomerangs in the dirt or something. But it was, it's something actually as I went through this process, I actually was talking about it on my live stream in the morning. If you guys don't know, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. every single weekday morning, I'm live at playback.tv/pitchlist to just take your questions. And someone mentioned, your conversation about this with there's a certain area maybe of how hard you want curveballs to be thrown, where maybe that's good enough, but not in the injury threshold.
Right, because the really low, the 70-mile-an-hour sliders, none of them are good. So you don't really want those players.
Right.
But then you could look in the middle and be like, oh, this guy has an 86-mile-an-hour slider. That seems just perfect. Not too hard to get hurt, but good enough to be good. And then you're like, oh, he's currently hurt.
But the thing is, maybe that's good for Spencer Strider, an 84, 85 mile per hour slider right now. No, the thing actually that really got me thinking was, okay, there's been a whole long conversation about what causes injury, everything like that. And I think a lot of it is obviously proven right, but a lot of it is also just like, okay, some guys do it and they're fine. The W that we heard about for so long.
Oh, there was another one about showing the ball to second base.
Right, which makes sense. You want to show it to third and not second, and it's less turning and all of that. At the end of the day, to throw effectively and to not get hurt generally means throwing fastballs in a way that is normal, whatever your normal arm action is, and never changing it. Never shifting your wrist at all during delivery. Whatever is the smoothest and easiest way for you to throw, just always doing that.
So then it's a repetitive motion injury where you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Like we can get that at the computer where like you just get carpal tunnel because you're just typing the same way over and over.
I guess what I'm getting at is throwing breaking balls makes us twist in certain ways with our hands that are not good. It damages the elbow a little bit more. That's I think the bit of the theory behind this, and it makes me think that if you have your natural arm slide and everything is great throwing a four-seamer, the ones that are not hurt as often with elbow issues are the ones where it's successful with fastball changeup, because you're just essentially throwing your fastball again, but now you have a different grip. You have the circle change grip. It's not always that simple. Sometimes you overpronate, like Devin Williams, for example. But
there's a lot of people who agree with you. We had some analysis from Jeff Zimmerman that, yes, the changeup guys did say a little bit healthier. We also have the Dr. Mike Marshall acolytes who are very big fans of pronation, and to the point where they want their pitchers to aggressively pronate because pronation in effect does pronation does save your elbow in a way, like, and we pronate on everything we throw because it's like your body trying to save your elbow in a way. Like, so their pronation does like take stress off. It's like basically taking some of the elbow stress and putting it into other muscles and spreading it around. That's the act of pronation. So a changeup is pronation where you're dragging down on that pointer finger. That's pronation. And so there's a lot of stuff to be said for that. Then again, if you are a righty with a great changeup, how many righties are you getting out? Then you're like Chris Paddock, and
that's the interesting thing is if you have a
it's a breaking.
I'm thinking like Ryan Pepia right now is turning his slider away and more going toward a cutter at this point.
Yeah, he's always
he's four-seamer changeup cutter. And in my view,
that's the best outcome for a righty with a great changeup, I think.
And from when I was growing up and learning cutters, and obviously it's different for everybody. Some of them are just bad and whatever. Sometimes it's just as easy as putting your fingers as for the four-seamer and just twisting the ball slightly, but not changing how you deliver it, just keeping it exactly like a fastball the entire way through.
So he could just
on top of it, the ball comes out a little bit differently.
Basically, fastball, cutter, change. Yeah.
Right. So then it's a small thing, and pretty much every single pitch you're throwing is the same mentality, the same. I'm throwing like a fastball, and there's a thought process here of like, okay, who are the 96, 97, 98 mile per hour fastball guys whose number 2 pitch is a changeup. And are they surviving? And I'm thinking like, okay,
Joe
well, you got Tarek
Ryan?
Skubal. Wait, hold on a second. He's throwing a little too hard.
Yeah, he's really hard. Joe Ryan?
O'Regan's was kind of down there to 94.
Chris Bubich?
Chris Bubich is doing that a bit, even though he is leaning a lot in his slider and
but it's a soft slider,
right? So Bubich is, but he has a history of not being healthy.
I know. I mean, Joe Ryan has a history. Paddock is in this discussion, but he's been hurt.
Right. Well, I mean, we tried. It's just really Logan Webb. I just think about Logan Webb. I think also about Framber Valdez too. He's not someone who's lighting up the radar gun, but is, you know, I mean, I also think about this with Carlos Rodon, who, yes, he did miss time, but it was
slot could be a part of this.
Yeah, slot is absolutely
lower slots. We've been realizing maybe this year with the recent research that maybe slightly lower slots are more healthy. I do think that, like, you know, one of the things, and I know he comes up a lot just because he was a very extreme slot guy, but Josh Colementor did suffer a lot of injuries. And I do think Pete Fairbanks is like a really over the top guy. He's been injured all the time. I think, you know, if you just think about the shoulder and like reaching up there, it's just, it gets more crowded.
You can hear the creaking
down here. When you're down here, it's like that. It's just going right out of your body. And I think there's a lot of people who think that like that's the safest thing, is just sort of right off the edge of your body.
Which is so funny because when I was like 10 or 12, everyone's like,
get on top of the ball.
Do not throw sidearm. You'll destroy your arm.
Yeah. You know? Get on top of the ball.
Oh, man. Well, all right. We will get to the actual meat and potatoes of this episode. We're going to show you guys the arms who have gone down in projections. And if you remember, Eno gave a tease. The number 1 guy, the lowest one, is pretty obvious here. And I would say that you might be a little sad about it, but I think we all are a little, that just hasn't worked out. And of course, that guy is ROKI SASAKI. ERA projection of 355 in the preseason and 483 right now.
Switch to the other side.
Oh, wrong side. Oh no, wrong one. Here we go. Nope, that's not it either. Got it. Nailed it. So dope.
ROKI SASAKI. There it is. ROKI SASAKI, who has stopped throwing. He's not even supposedly pain free, but he's stopped throwing. And this is a stuff thing. So, like, you know, I think that it's a really obvious reason the stuff wasn't there, and so the projection had to change. And then, you know, one of the most powerful things in projections is strikeouts minus walks, and he was terrible there. I would assume that has something to do with Painter. I don't know why Painter would have changed so much without pitching in the major leagues.
Well, he AAA data though, I assume, or maybe this is just the innate plus 76 for 79 for everyone with the state of the ball. Probably not, obviously, but
I don't know what it is. But you know, Turnbull has given us some stuff coming back. Woodruff, you know, I think we've got some actual K- BB results from the minors that are driving this. His rehab has not been very successful.
Right. Same with
I don't think minor league stuff is in here, but we know what it is, so it doesn't surprise us maybe to see Woodruff there. But I guess I was a little surprised to see Landon ROUPP.
Yeah.
And I think that this is because preseason, and maybe I don't want to speak for Jordan Rosenblum and say there was no adjustment. I'm sure there was an adjustment, but you know, one thing that you can like look at a theoretical stuff adjustment, you know, from going from relieving to starting, and then you can look at how it actually plays out. But this is strange. Landon ROUPP stuff last year was 98. This year it's 98 as a starter. Why would his ERA go down? I suppose his K- BB is a little bit boring. Landon ROUPP has a 20% strikeout rate, a 9% walk rate. That is below average. The average K- BB is around 14, and this is about an 11. So I guess it basically said we thought he might be elite. He is basically an average-ish pitcher. I think with the benefit of that home environment in a fantasy context, he's still a guy you can have on any roster. In 10 teams, you may not start him away from home. At 12, you start him away from home in some places. And at 15, you pretty much just start him all the time. I think that's the story of Landon ROUPP right now.
The one thing I do want to note is Matt Chapman being hurt for a little bit does hurt the potential hit per 9 a little, and it's already been a bit low at 9.4 for ROUPP. I am curious to see if there is an actual effect on it. Also, I do have to say, it would have been so funny the Giants put Devers at third, and then after losing Matt Chapman, that would have been like the biggest swing I've ever seen ever. But with ROUPP, it is odd to see such a low strikeout rate. The curve was so dominant early on. We all remember that Phillies game, and he hasn't really had that same curve again. You know, it has been around, but it hasn't been as dominant as it was then. We've seen growth in the changeup from ROUPP to lefties. That's cool. Sometimes cutters appear, but I've yet to see that game where ROUPP has the tools all working in tandem, right? You say, oh, okay, you're on my curveball. Here's my changeup. Do something with that, right? That kind of feeling as a pitcher is where dominance really lies. And it's like he's treading water at the moment.
Yeah, you know? He used to actually, last year, he got 2 to 3 inches more drop on that curveball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he's become a little bit more sideways on that curveball. And I don't know why. I mean, he's still, it's also pretty slow. I think that's what's keeping it from being an elite pitch, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's gotten slower. That's obvious because he's gone from relieving to starting. But it was, 78 at the end of last year. And now in the last 3 starts, it's been 75. Last start was 77.5. But that was a short start where he got blown up by the Dodgers. That is absolutely just, by the way, one game I would just never have started him in. If I avoided him in any league, I would have avoided throwing him into the Dodgers. But if you take the Dodgers out of his game log this year, he's been pretty steady. The one other one was at San Diego. That was his bad game. Mm-hmm. And at Philly. So I think you're just like, hey, if it's a top 10 offense on the road, see if you can avoid it. Otherwise, it's the kind of like, there's some polish to this arsenal that's kind of surprising for a guy that was relieving just last year. Mm-hmm. But when you have the cutter and the change and the curve and the sinker, like, he doesn't have the plus ground balls you might expect with that kind of an arsenal, but he does keep the ball on the ground. He does keep the ball in the park. He doesn't usually have, huge blow-ups where he's giving up tons of homers or, so I think that against a, middle of the pack offense, he's still a good option.
And what is a little interesting, you're talking about the extra inch of horizontal movement, and he's getting actually 20, which is unreal on ROUPP's curveball. He does have 3 inches less extension, really like 3 1/3 or so. Wow. And I was talking to Tyler Zombra about this a while ago, about like Ben Kasparius, like having low extension, being like, well, I wish, he had higher. He goes, well, lower extension means there's more time for the breaking stuff to move. And it does, I do think about that a little bit. You have a tick less velocity, lower extension might make up for that extra inch.
I've thought about that with moving the mound back. If you move the mound back, all the pitches are going to move more.
Yeah.
So,
but then they'll just get calibrated to that and they have more time to figure it out. I mean, the thing actually, when we were in high school, when it was like a slower throwing guy, we'd all just move up in the box. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if we saw some data now that we have in the box data of like where they are, that some batters are predicting a slower pitch and they move up in the box to reduce its movement.
That's really weird. I was looking at the Padres, and there's a lot of Padres who have moved up in the box, not a lot, but a few inches, and are also letting the ball travel more, which is just a weird combo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is really weird.
There's something weird going on with the hitting coaching in San Diego, but Sean Burke, I think, I think that is just a quick reaction and I think this is why we have projections and stuff plus, so we can make quicker reactions, because last year the changeup was above average by stuff plus, the fastball was above average, and you said, okay, what if he can just nudge those breaking balls towards average, or maybe make one of them a plus pitch, and he just hasn't done that. And so what you're left with is a kind of a one pitch pitcher right now, because the change isn't necessarily even there for him. And I think Stuff Plus just said that and said, maybe he deserves this 4.7 ERA that he's got right now. And especially when you look then at K-minus BB, it's 17% for Sean Burke, 10% walk rate. That's a 7% K-minus BB. That's not, it's not helping him at all.
Yeah, the fastball's also gotten slower for Sean Burke. And I actually remember those 3 games that were
it's going to
excited.
happen, I think, because he's pushing innings totals and
Yeah.
Right.
Those 3 games too. Also, you had a slider and a curve that were missing bats. I mean, both of those had 20% plus swing strike rates in those games, and they were looked like legitimate secondaries for him last year. And it's just not really been there for Sean Burke. So not a huge surprise at all with that one. I did want to make just make a little pit stop here with Lucas Giolito. And I have to do it. I'm just very curious about it. But before we
what
do,
went right for him in that? Oh yeah, okay.
We're going to take a quick break, okay? Quick break. Okay. Giolito, he's weird because we didn't know what we're going to see entering the season. If you actually just take a look at every game that he's had, it's like he showcases something new each time. And
yes, it's so crazy.
Yeah. And he's actually outlined, I can tell you exactly what's going on because he's told the media what is going on. He reshaped his slider because he said, all right, my slider is not what it was before, and I need to figure that out. And he fixed it before the Jays start. And we saw a new one there that is tighter, 80,
more
89.
Gyro. It's tighter and harder.
And not as loopy as the one before.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, cool. Then we look at my skeletal biomechanics from years ago, 21. And compared it with now, and it's different. And we go, oh no. And that's from Just Baseball, actually, I believe, interviewing. So, no, Baseball is Dead. Might have been. I apologize, but they had a great interview with him. And he was saying that was more tilted, and he didn't get that quite right. So he tweaked that. And what we have, yes, it is in the T against the Mariners. Very fair. If you want to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, absolutely, with 10 strikeouts in 6 innings.
But the slider stuff plus the last 2 outings, best of his season. And
94, 95 on the 4-seamer, 18 inches of vert. That's nearly 7 feet of extension.
He got some velo, and he has the best vert and velo on his fastball. I had been prepared to just be like, just a couple of matchups, and basically 97 stuff plus between those two. But that 97 stuff plus is way better than the seasonal 90 stuff plus that he's working with.
Yeah.
So that's a real improvement. And he didn't even show, according to Location Plus, he didn't even show prime locations in the last 2 outings.
I would say the fastball he did, not with the slider. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, there's still, maybe he's putting something together. Okay. I was prepared to be like, I totally believe in this and I support Oopsie, but
that's all of Reddit.
We can move a little bit faster than Oopsie too, and just declare these changes. I mean, just in terms of pitch type, it's remarkable. At the beginning of the season, the first 2 starts, he was 97%, 95% fastball change.
Yeah,
with 60 fastball, 40 change basically, and then then he brought the slider back in and took it mostly off the fastball, and so his fastball percentages were down in the 30s for a while. And then with this last one was getting his fastball back, basically getting that velo back.
Yeah.
He's back up to 50% fastball, 20 to 25% slider, and 25% changeup, which might be kind of an ideal mix. That is kind of what the mix looked like when he was at his best.
Yeah. What's kind of weird is that his changeup PLV has gone way down. Changeup used to be the one that's like a 5.3, which is exceptional in PLV land, and it's at like 4.85 at the moment. I'm trying to figure out exactly the biggest shift, and it's actually laterally. Arm side location is first percentile in the majors at 32%, as that used to be a 40 to 50%, and a lot more glove side. So I imagine that is against lefties where it's really impacting him. Yeah, it's essentially triple, like 30% of them are arm side, or sorry, glove side rather, against lefties, which isn't what you want. You want that arm side. And that's really the big difference in the changeup performance being.
It's also gotten slightly harder. So he used to have like a 13, 14 mile an hour gap and be this, crazy straight change. Now it's down to more like a 10 mile an hour gap. And if, in these cases, sometimes more movement is not better.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be a straight change, and so his vertical movement is not quite what it was, and horizontal movements. Yeah, this pitch is slightly different than it used to be. So I think it's good that he's figured out the slider.
Yeah, definitely.
I still just think that's a really tough home park. And
well, I think that's the biggest argument against him, right? Is
I
the
think
home
it's a
park
tough home
Fenway not
park.
fun? You have a worse offense now? I don't know. We'll see how the rookies play with the Red Sox. But yeah, it is a case where I think I'm starting him against most teams on the road, save for like the elite 5 offenses or whatever.
Maybe, yeah.
And then at home, I would say bottom half. Right? That's kind of where I'm at with Lucas Giolito at the moment. But I just thought he was a very interesting one on this list. Are there any others that you really are surprised about? I mean, Fott doesn't surprise me too much. He was looking better in the beginning of the year with his curveball and his changeup to lefties, and it really just disappeared after. His sweeper hasn't been quite the same. Doesn't surprise me there. We see a lot of injured guys here in Blake Snell and Luis Heel and Bryce Miller as well. I
did highlight Brandon Fott just because, like, I thought people might want to talk about, especially if they him a deep dynasty, or he's on waiver wires for almost everybody, right? Like, is there something there? Like, if I'm rebuilding, should I pick him up? Like, is there, could he figure something out? And I just wanted to point out that after he hit the very bottom, which was against the Nationals, I think probably people were just decided then they were never going to own Brandon Fott again. He didn't strike anybody out and didn't get any outs and gave up 8 earned, just like that. And then he comes back against Atlanta, strikes out 2 and 3 innings and gives up 6 earned. And I think people were like, that's it, never again. One thing that I'm just really surprised to see is a cutter in his last start. And I wanted to remind people that there's not that far of a distance between him and Will Warren. I mean, we're talking about sinker sweeper guys that have other pitches that are just trying to figure out how to place all the other pitches around it, And I think these types of pitchers are relatively low ceiling. Michael King is the ceiling.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't want to say that's really low, but it's not Scooble or, you know what I mean? It's not,
right.
So, I think Michael King is the ceiling. Clark Schmidt is like the middle. Will Warren is around there. And then Brandon Fott right now is at the bottom. Hayden Wesneski was probably, near the bottom. But if you listen, like, who was the other guy? We're talking about Pollack. Pollack is near the bottom of this type,
Yeah.
But it's a type that you're like, it's increasingly useful. And so the deeper your league is, the more you should be like, he's probably still a starter.
Well, what's interesting, you would probably put Aaron Nola in this as well.
Wow. Yeah, there's some similarities there. He's kind of a lower slottish sinker. He has a better four seam than some of these guys in terms of shape, at least.
Yeah, he's flat on the attack angle, which allows him to do it. But then again, that is the main difference, I think, right now with Will Warren in a lot of these.
Is that the four seamer is better than a lot of these.
He can actually, it's what gets me really excited about him. Last night, Will Warren against the Angels, which, by the way, the Yankees, of course, couldn't give him any run support against Kyle Hendricks. I know. It's tough, guys. Will Warren had 11 strikeouts, and I believe only 2 of them were on the sweeper. Everything was away fastballs to right-handers. And it was either the sinker coming back and freezing them or the four-seamer missing bats there.
Wow.
And that's something that isn't really there for a lot of these sinker sweeper arms, right? That is helpful.
30% K percentage for Will Warren, 17 for Fott. So
right.
I'm just describing a little bit of an archetype.
Absolutely.
That I believe that Fott could move around in. I mean, Fott, when he first came up, threw the four-seamer a ton.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a terrible pitch.
Before I understood it, I was like, oh man, this actually seems like something that explodes up top. And then, I mean, to be fair, there's nothing quite like ruining your confidence going to the majors when you go against the 3 top offenses in each of your appearances in the majors. I don't know if you remember that, but at the time, like the Rangers were a top offense. He went against them and got blown up. He went against the Dodgers and then the Yankees, I think it was.
Oh wow, that's how
And
he
it was just
started.
home run, home run, home run. Everything was horrible. I think the Rangers had like back to back to back to back or something. It was just brutal for him, right? And he's adapted since then. But the one thing I will say about Pfaadt is that you have seen amazing rhythm and great command from him. It's what brings people in. Is we saw him during the playoff run with the Diamondbacks, where he just spots these pitches all of a sudden, and it allows him to go 6 innings. And a lot of these guys that you're talking about, you're saying they're productive because they generally are going to be more reliant on balls in play, and they are going to generate it. And the Diamondbacks have a great defense.
They have wide arsenals. This group that I've created has wide arsenals. They have different fastballs they can throw to each handedness, you know. And they're limited by how good their four-seamer is, how good their changeup is. Basically, they're all righties that will struggle with lefties unless they do something really well. And Warren has the four-seam. King's four-seam is all right. His changeup is commanded better than maybe anybody in the big leagues almost.
Yeah.
So those are the things that separate you from the Wesnensky or from the Pollacks.
And this is the huge thing. I mean, even Uncle Ted is making this point of just you know, Pfaadt can't do it with just a curve and changeup, and you need that thing against lefties. Well, I remember not this time last year, I guess kind of before the season of 2024, we were debating between Garrett Whitlock and Tanner Houck. And the thing is, well, Tanner Houck would be good if he had a way to get out lefties. And what did he do? He had the best feel for his splitter that I've ever seen in that first half. He just nailed it every single time, arm side against them, neutralized them, everything.
But he never had a fastball like for lefties.
Right. It was sinkers away. And
that's why this cutter for Pfaadt could be big. Now, his next start, of course, I'm saying all this. Next start is at Colorado. So just that's ignore what I'm saying now, but remember it a week from now when he's about to go up against Miami. He might actually be useful in that. If he throws the cutter 10% of the time, 15% of the time in Miami and throws them to Stowers, you know, and throws them to the lefties. Like,
wow, you can name a Miami hitter from the left side.
I do know the hitters too.
Oh my gosh. Incredible. Is Bride still there? No, he's not, right?
So now that I've made an argument for, you know, Brandon Pfaadt, maybe, you know, like I think he's still a starter. I think that there's at least a league average starter that can come out of this. I like the idea that he's throwing this cutter now. I want to see more. Can you make that same argument for Bowden Francis, or is he going back to the bullpen? You know,
I got a lot of
not good enough.
One of the things I regretted the most in the preseason was that I went on the CBS show, and I was just kind of leaning into it a bit and having fun. But I remember Frank Stanfield asked, like, "All right, Nick, so Bowden Francis, where are you on him?" And I just started laughing. I was just like, "Oh no! Don't make me do this with Bowden Francis." And it's because, you know, I was actually even talking about before where we hang out and we go, okay, cool. How is this guy doing this? And you go, oh, I don't know. I was hoping you were going to tell me. That's how we felt with Bowden Francis, right? At the end of last year, it was four seamers that had a little extra movement or something like that, but should not have had the success. He had a splitter and a curve and a slider, but none of them are actually that
the Baseball Prospectus Arsenal stats really like him because the four seam, the splitter, and curve and slider have very wildly differentiated movements. So it's large movements, but large movements like that, what they create are called strikes, not swinging strikes. And so basically that puts a lot of pressure on his command. His command last year was slightly above average, but if you see a guy with like a 102, 103 location plus, I don't think that you pencil him in for good command going forward. The guys like Nola that do it year in and year out usually have 107s. Kirby has like
105 is maybe the threshold for you.
Something like that. I mean, a 103 is just like he could be average, he could be below average. This year he's been exactly average by location plus, but it's just not enough to harness basically sub-average stuff, even if it kind of is for pitch and has some interesting movement interactions. You know, it's 3 home runs per 9. When they guess right, they guess right. They hit it far.
Yeah, you know, it's something to be said actually about I like to think of guys in like 3 buckets almost of, okay, cool. You are expected to perform at your top 25% ability every night. And then there are other guys that, cool, you're expected to perform at your bottom 25%. And then the majority of the league is in this like middle ground. So you see like a 103 location plus. What I'm thinking is like, cool, one game you have a 110, then this one's a 95, and maybe then
when
and
you
then
have a
you're gonna have like
95,
your
you're
Jose
gonna get
Quintanas who are like,
blasted.
yo, what's up? I'm up here. And then the
Yeah.
Burgess rules ends, and now they're down here, right? Then they're much lower. And
Yeah.
that's me what rhythm is, right? So Aaron Nola is someone who generally isn't just reliant on rhythm. He's pretty much always there, is always expected to be. Luis Ortiz, never in rhythm. Okay. But then you have Bowden Francis, and maybe you can strike, there it is, and then it goes away. So it's, yeah, I don't want to put myself in harm's way for that to happen again with Bowden Francis. And honestly, a lot of the time it's just confidence. And I wouldn't think that he has that right now.
We on Rates and Barrels had a question if we're just done with Bailey Ober, and we said yes.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, he's pitching hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt. You can see it. It shows up in the strikeout rate. If he's not going to have the nice strikeout rate, it shows up. He's a guy who did have the 107s in location pluses going into the season. He was 113, 106, 105, 107.
Locate the fastball up anymore.
And he's still actually 102 with location plus, but that's not where he needs to be. He needs to he needs to be pretty fine. And he lost a tick of velo. So I was wondering if maybe we used to have this, analysis that showed us that between 90 and 94, velo changes weren't as big a deal because you're in the sort of average mix. But now that average across the entire league is 94, I have to think that that window is shifted. So between 92 and 95 or 91 and 95, you're just in the average mix, and that you start separating yourself at 96. You used to separate yourself 94 plus. That's average. Right. So you separate yourself now with 96 plus. And so I think he's below that zone. He dropped from, being on the lower end of acceptable velo to maybe 90.6 is just unacceptable velo unless you just have pinpoint command that season or like great shapes on all your stuff like Yarborough. But like if you start to list the number of people who live below 91, it's a really small list.
I mean, Kyle Hendricks last night against the Yankees. I just mentioned this. He had 9 whiffs on his fastballs.
Yeah.
9. Kyle Hendricks at 86 miles per hour.
I didn't watch it. Was he pitching backwards off the change?
Oh my! It was. Well, the Yankees were swinging backwards, is what you mean.
I mean, they're in the middle of a pretty legendary funk too. They haven't scored in like 3+ games.
Oh man, 5 runs in 6 games. 5 runs in 6 games. Okay. Oh my gosh, it is something. We're not going to talk about hitting anymore. I promise you that. I do want to mention I'm not going to mention Jake Irvin here. I'm sorry. That's just funny. I remember it lives in my brain. You calling me out on 57 Jake Irvin because when he's on point, he's great, and he wasn't the next start and hasn't been since. It's like I can feel the second you said it, you brought it into existence. No, I'm just kidding. I was too high on it. Kikuchi is a very interesting one to me. He's at a 413 projected ERA now, was at 381. And Kikuchi, when he signed with the Angels, my perception is that the Angels in-season pitching development is a little behind a lot of others. We've seen in the past with Reed Detmers, for example. He had to go into the minors to get himself fixed, and they got rid of that guy, Buddy Carlisle, the one who did fix Reed Detmers back in the day with his slider. And I had concerns that Kikuchi, when he did stumble, wouldn't necessarily have the guidance as soon as other teams would give him. And we did see that. We saw that in the beginning of June. There was a quote coming out that, oh yeah, he changed his grips on his four-seamer and slider, and no one realized it. And he was a lot worse because of it. We are seeing a little bit better now. We just saw 10 strikeouts with Kikuchi. Do you think that
best vert on his four seam since they've said that, basically? I'm trying to figure out what they found out in his slider. I guess what I would say is that his slider movement, especially vertically, was more erratic before.
Yeah.
He's kind of settled into, I think he knows what the slider is going to do now, because he had games where the slider had a 4 IVB, and then 2 games later it had a 1.7. So, that was early season where it just oscillated pretty wildly from the 1s to the 4s. But in the last 3 games, it's all started with a 3.
Yeah.
So I think he has found something. And it sucks because I wanted to just be like, you know, I put him away, you know, I don't have to think about him anymore.
Oh, you
And
mean a
he's,
hipster? Oh yeah.
yeah, but now he's back in my head. And, you know, as bad as certain things look, you know, he's looked better the last 3 games. And I'm going to at least just say, I think he's usable. I didn't think he was usable before. I think in the right situations, you go into Boston and you come out of it with 3 runs in 5 innings, and then the game against the Athletics, that's absolutely useful. Like you should
Oh
at
yeah.
home against
Killed
the
it there.
Athletics, but then
That was the
going
best
into
looking Snyder
Baltimore was
commanded wise too. Down in
yeah.
glove side constantly.
Going into Baltimore, I think would be a pick 'em about whether or not you use him. He gets 10 strikeouts with 3 earned runs. Kikuchi does in 5 2/3. So I think he's still a borderline case. Maybe you pitch him at home more often. He's had more success at home this year than on the road. You avoid the big offenses. Maybe it could be something like in the deep leagues. You acquire that, you know, with a smaller prospect. It's not going to cost you as much as other guys, and you just use him for the rest of the season. You don't consider him a keeper, quote unquote. You know, I think he's. I'm just gonna say I think he's useful, and he may be more useful than Zach Gallen, who's right below him.
Oh yeah, Zach Gallen is someone who, watching these games and actually seeing him kind of experiment with what he uses and how he attacks, should be getting better results. Like at the same time, it just seems that he's more hittable in general, and he has been for a little bit, but he's always been able to pick it up a bit. I feel like he's going to perform better than this moving forward. It's a 4.04 projected ERA with OOPSI. It was a 3.72 in the beginning of the season. Do you think that we should just
388?
But he's going to ruin your teams?
Yeah, I mean, Zip still likes him for 388, but Zips doesn't have stuff in it. So Oopsie's saying, hey, he has a 90 stuff plus right now. And we just did a big board over at the Athletic of possible trade candidates. And, you know, with the caveat that we don't exactly know which way Arizona's going right now. But they did just lose their ace and their 2-headed closer to Tommy John, basically. So you have to think that they're thinking about selling. And so if they're thinking about selling, Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly are both up at the end of the year. And in our rankings, we had Zach Gallen above Merrill Kelly, you know, as a better trade asset. And I had to say in the thing, like, not that I totally disagree, I kind of get it, but why? Because right now, Merrill Kelly's projections are better. His stuff plus is better. His strikeout rate is better. His walk rate is better. I think Merrill Kelly's a better pitcher than Zach Gallen. And
he's more consistent. He works the edges more. He does what I call the neck beard, which is where you don't throw the ball up, you throw it around the edges of the left and right and down. But he is a big, you know, he's a good fit for the Cubs because Merrill Kelly relies on the Arizona defense behind him. And that's an elite defense. And I think if you put Merrill Kelly and you put him on the Marlins or so, that's not gonna, you know, he would have had a lot different numbers over the years.
Merrill Kelly, like, you know, Yankee Stadium, like I wouldn't be super excited about that.
So I think the Cubs, if they're not trying to spend for someone better than both Gallen and Kelly, they just need some help to get them there. Yeah. Kelly's a great addition for that. I would love to see Zach Gallen just in a different organization, just see what happens. You know, a place that we know would take in Gallen and be like, all right, yeah, let's do this. And
you know, I don't think of Arizona as being particularly behind. They did hire that he was a legend before the Astros.
Brent Strom.
Brent Strom, is he still there?
Yeah. No, he's in the Pirates now.
Okay, but you know, they've hired good pitching coaches in the past. I respect the hell out of Dan Herron. So I don't think that, you know, there's something fundamentally wrong, but there is something a little bit askew with, like, I wouldn't have made a lot of the choices they made in free agency. And when you make choices like that in free agency, maybe it does broadcast something about your pitching values.
Sure.
So, like, you know, I was thinking about the Orioles love guys who have wide arsenals and not the greatest stuff, but pretty good command, right? That's what they broadcast in free agency and trades and stuff. So I don't know exactly what Arizona. I think Arizona might be on that same wavelength where they want large arsenals and good command. So I'm surprised that they're not asking Gallen to throw more cutters and sliders.
Well,
And
they've
like
tried, but they aren't good.
Yeah.
They aren't working. And the only things I've seen work with Gallen are curveballs, which is the true death ball. And I'll never forgive Chet Passon for calling it the Jordan Montgomery's.
Yeah.
But the changeup sometimes does work down. Really, what I saw back in the day with Gallen was everything would be down, including four seamers. And he would just play the game of, is it, you're looking low and you don't know if it's the heater or you don't know if it's the curveball or the changeup instead.
Right. I talked to Dylan Cease about this. Like, if you're only fastball slider, you got to throw low fastballs.
Right. This is what Strider says. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Gallen would play with that. He has extra vert too, so it would come back up, and people even think that's going to land low, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I actually wonder if the best trade candidate is a team that we've seen make major trades between Arizona before, and it's the Astros. I mean, they have Valdez and Brown right now. They have very interesting guys. I actually last night watching Jason Alexander. Pretty interesting. There is your 80-mile-per-hour Strata changeup. There is a sweeper that moves a lot. There's a sinker that is actually a sinker with actually better command than I expected. But and we talked about Colton Gordon and Brandon Walter, and
yeah, they've been really cultivating these low velo lefties,
yeah.
And I was wondering, one of the things that's interesting about the Astros is they've had a big brain drain. They've lost a lot of analysts, over the time. We know some of them,
Yeah.
And, having done that, I was wondering how many of the old processes that these people had put in place would still remain. And I think the success of somebody like a Ryan Gusto and a Colton Gordon and then Brandon Walter, who you really turned me on to last week. I had really no idea about Brandon Walter, and now he's my favorite of the three.
Oh, oh my gosh.
But the outcomes that they're getting, even if those are number fives, are really good for those types of pitchers. Those are not high draft picks. None of them, crack. I mean, Gusto has some velo, but like the other guys can't even crack 93,
right.
And they've figured something out with all of these guys. And I have to believe that's the remnants of old processes. So maybe, their processes are still pretty good there. Maybe they would have something for Gallen. I did have them as an honorable mention in terms of maybe acquiring pitching, because, if somebody can be better than those three that we just mentioned, they have a place on that
Absolutely.
rotation.
Yeah, I'm really curious also what Arrigetti's timeline is. We don't really know.
It just seems to take forever. I think he just started throwing a little bit, and it was just a broken finger. Like, it feels like.
I mean, I understand having dislocated my finger before, and it just takes forever sometimes. I mean, it's like a high ankle sprain. You don't know. It can be a while that it just lingers, and it just hopefully just gets removed. Everything vacates eventually. But we've got to talk about the risers, and we don't have too much time left, but we're going to talk about them after this break. Alrighty, so who is the biggest riser, do you think? Do you remember who it is?
Yeah, I mean, people saw it.
Oh yeah, fine. Okay, fine. It's Quinn Priester. Whatever,
Why is it Quinn Priester?
People on the podcast didn't see it. Okay, listening audio. Thank you for listening, but guys, you got to watch it live. We have this stuff right in front of you live. And you can find it on the Crafts YouTube channel, also the Pitcherless YouTube channel. But Quinn Priester, 4.03 ERA, 4.36 was in the preseason. And the other major one here, wow. Well, I can explain one of them very easily, but JT Ginn going up too, 4.2 to 4.5. Let's start with Quinn Priester.
I don't know why. I have no idea why. Priester. He has a 7 K- BB. He has a 98. Actually, maybe the 98 stuff is. Oh, the 98 stuff is better than he had in the past.
Yeah, the slider is looking really good right now, especially the location.
He had a 91 stuff plus last year, so yeah. This is stuff driven. Actually,
there is a cutter and a sinker now. I don't believe in Quinn Priester. I think the location of the sinker, for just not being a good sinker, is way too detrimental and is going to burn him a bit. And the cutter is fine. And so you're the cutter, let's be honest here. Okay. Yeah. It's finally arrived. Everyone's like, oh, so you're a deep arsenal. No, it's just cutters everywhere.
What the arsenal he has is that it's funny because he was a pirate. It's kind of the Pirates 2 fastballs and a slider.
Oh yeah,
Luis L. Ortiz and
3 pitches to end every at bat approach.
But it's amazing. I mean, the Stuff Plus says he should throw his curveball more, but it's an
okay. So that curveball was a thing that was a major part of his arsenal last year, and he started removing that and focusing just on the slider instead. Again, don't really buy it. Some of the matchups are okay, but I'm not a big fan of this. Even here, it's saying it's a 403 projection.
Ever since he has done that, and I don't know if there's correlation equals causation, but ever since he's devalued the curve, his locations have gotten better.
No, that's interesting.
He has in the last 6 games, he has 1 game with a 100 location plus at Cincinnati, and everything else is 107 to 115.
Nice.
Like he's been elite with his locations in terms of sinker, cutter, and slider. So
yeah,
I mean,
now I will say when it comes to location plus, it says, hey, cool, throw it just in the zone for a sinker. It's a positive thing, correct?
Well, it's count and pitch type adjusted. So
okay, so it is okay.
It's probabilistic. So there's
right,
in a 3-0 count.
It's what we have as well for PLV. I wanted to make sure. So we
but it does. I think it does say zone is better than not. So one way to sort of hack it, I guess, is to have a high zone percentage. And oh yes, look at this. Ever since he stopped throwing the curve, he has about almost a 55% zone percentage, which is very high.
Yeah. So he's been pumping those sinkers in there. The slider was amazing in his last start. As far as
you keep pumping a mediocre-ish sinker into the zone, you're gonna get burned eventually.
Yeah, you are. That's how I feel. That's exactly it. You better be you better be praying, you priester. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I don't.
I so bad. I apologize. That was terrible.
I'm surprised to see him move so much. JT Ginn actually changed things about his arsenal. Had a large change in Stuff Plus, and changes to basically the movement of his pitches and stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this because it's been a while. He's been on the IL for a bit, and he just came back, I believe, yesterday or 2 days ago in relief. But sinker slider guy who then embraced the cutter, but
the sinker gets like 2 inches more drop, and
this is what it was. Oh my gosh, he had the first
less fade. He gets less fade than it used to. Fun. It's almost like he went to like a 1-seamer or something.
Yeah, the first start of the year, he was throwing 95-mile-per-hour sinkers out of nowhere and keeping it down, and it had under 4 inches of vert, which is what you want. Kind of 4 inches is for me like what we want to see on a sinker. To be an actual
calm down a little bit. He's more 90.
And now he's like 92 or so. I mean, he was in 93.5 in relief, but last game he started was 93. And that sinker drop is at even more, 1.2.
Yeah.
That's so fun. It's just okay, can the slider be the big whiff pitch it was in 2024? Can he develop more with that changeup as well?
Yeah, Stuff does not like the slider. This is all based on the sinker. Stuff says it's the sinker and nothing else. But what did we just see with Jose Soriano? What? And I'm not saying that he is as good stuff as Jose Soriano, but like Jose Soriano added sink to his sinker, really focused on the sinker, and has had a really good stretch doing that. Maybe if your sinker is good enough, you can make that your out pitch and your strike pitch, and then everything else is just a constellation around your sinker. I mean, there's that possibility for Ginn. I like him as an away pitcher. I think there's something here. I'm almost not starting anybody in Sacramento. If you look at Luis Severino's home away splits,
it's so bad.
Your eyes.
I call it Sacro Verde, the sacred green, but it makes you react in a way. But it is actually 2 inches extra movement, both horizontally and vertically, for JT Ginn's slider this year, with nearly a tick extra velo too.
But the Stuff Plus is still like,
Yeah.
I guess it's because it's kind of a gyro that's not super hard.
Right. He's the actual jack of one trade, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
With the sinker. I hope it is Jack as the JT. We have not much time left here. So I do want to mention quick hits here. Adrian Hauser has a better projection. Why? Because he has two ticks harder velocity. Okay. That's it. That's super fun. Quality start leagues. Okay. But really not much
Shane
else.
McClanahan, is that the league adjustment?
I believe that
literally
is,
done
or,
nothing.
no.
Maybe that's the league adjustment.
Well, he did show up. Like it's not like he didn't pitch at all this year. Right?
All right.
Didn't he have like a game or two or something?
No, he's
completely been out.
Let me see. He went down in spring, I thought. Yeah, he went down in spring.
Yeah, okay. So we haven't seen him at all.
So that might be the league adjustment there. So maybe all these other ones there's not that big of a difference. Although I would say Griffin Canning showed us a lot of different stuff. I'm not surprised to see Canning on this list.
It's still a 4.31 though. You know, that's better than that's worse than Priesters.
So you think he's better than that?
Well, I don't know. I go back and forth on Griffin Canning because there's two things about it. One, he's unlike other guys who are showcasing growth and elite pitches that really work as a foundation. Like he does not have a good fastball.
Pitches.
And the whole game with Griffin Canning is let me throw my fastball just not in the zone and just remind you that I have it so that I can get you out with changeups and sliders. That is
dude,
the game.
Do you know that's what Presley's doing right now?
Ryan Presley?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just not throwing
it better recently.
Blanco.
He started throwing his fastball more, but not in the zone. I'm just like, what? This can't work. But so yeah, I mean, Canning
does at times for guys who have bad fastballs. I don't know how to grade Presley's. I feel like it should be good.
It's bad now.
Oh, it's really bad. Well, there you go. And sometimes guys are at the plate are just trying to hit the bad fastball, so they'll jump out there.
So they're swinging when they see fastball. So if you throw it outside the zone, you're still getting the swing because they're like bad fastball,
right? And
you throw it outside the zone, and you get outside of zone results,
right?
On the fastball, which is okay. That's interesting. So you're in the zone with the slider and the changeup, and you're outside. It's pitching backwards, but in like a
the thing is, I call it dancing with the disco when you just throw sliders over the plate inside the zone without thinking about really where location inside the zone. Just get it over. That's what Anthony Descalfani did, otherwise known as Tony Disco, when he had his breakout season with the Giants. We see Zach Littell have a lot of success with that.
If I had a name for it, it'd be like the Razor's Edge, dude.
Yeah.
At some point, batters could just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna take your fastballs." And I'm gonna sit slider.
But with Canning, he actually changed it slightly this year, where instead of doing that from last season, all of a sudden got really good at actually locating it down in glove side to right-handers, and also added drop on it. Same with the changeup. And suddenly there weren't many pitches that were in the middle of the zone. That said, he's had 14 games this year. Only 4 of them have been a whip under 140.
Yeah. There's walks, there's hits.
So what's happening to me is there's no walks. He's throwing more outside the zone, and it's good for baseball because he's able to limit those. It's kind of like the Blake Snell tightrope walking.
Yeah.
But for your fantasy teams, he doesn't have the strikeout rates. It doesn't have the same kind of ERA as Blake Snell.
And from a projection standpoint, it's 10% K minus BB and a 91 stuff plus. So there's not a ton of reason to hang your hat on it. The only reason he shows up on this is because he looked like not even a starter in Major League Baseball.
Oh, I know. I was so out.
Like a 4.6 ERA before the season. You're out. But then once he shows you these improvements and has, passable stuff, you start to change your projections. A lot of the rest of these guys on this list are breakouts. I mean, Sarek Skubal just got better again.
Yeah.
I think Gore is a legitimate breakout. Logan Webb added the cutter. His strikeout rate is better than it's ever been.
The best I've ever seen Logan Webb. It's insane. The full arsenal is there. He understands it. Like last year, I remember he was fighting of too many changeups and too few changeups. And am I going to get that cutter? Am I going to get that slider? I mean, you've talked to him about all the different grips of trying to figure out a slider. And now he's got it. He's understanding exactly
it's a sweeper. It's a changeup. It's a sweeper. It's a cutter. The cutter, his strikeout rate against lefties is the highest it's ever been. Most of the strikeout gains he's gotten is against lefties. And it's because I think they can't just stand over the plate and have a opposite field mentality on him.
Right.
You're going to send me sinkers and changeups. I'm just going to serve those into the opposite field. Yeah. Now he's like, no, I'm going to also bust you inside. It's not the greatest cutter in the world, but it comes inside at you. So I think
well,
that's
let's
a
give
good
it
one.
also a shout out to Kyle Freeland for dropping 20 points in his projection from
Still
543
having a
to
5.
523. I gotta
It's
give
not
it to
even
him.
his
You know,
fault. It's not his fault. It's all Colorado, dude. I mean, is he the best pitcher that has a 5 ERA, you know, over the last 3 years? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Sanchez, this extra velo. Bubic, I don't know. Like I think I missed on him a little bit. It's just it's a good fastball change. The velo isn't great. And then Kyle Harrison.
Okay, so this is fun. This is I think the last thing we're gonna do because you got to go. And Kyle Harrison, someone sent us a DM, which I think is hilarious, which was me just saying cool after the Rafael Devers trade. I said, look, the current iteration, the very last snapshot we got of a game of Kyle Harrison. What is he doing? He's looking like the best I've ever seen him, which doesn't necessarily say it's great and amazing, but also I can see potential here. I'm curious how that works out. And above that was Eno being like, what was your take on Kyle Harrison quickly?
He's a low slot, high spin efficiency guy. Like his comps are Andrew Haney and JP Sears and Sean Manaea. That these pitchers, none of them has a great secondary pitch. You can't add, like, there's almost been no success story in adding a great secondary pitch to any of these guys. So it's not surprising that he's been trying to throw a changeup forever and it hasn't been good. He's tried sweepers, slurves, and cutters, and they all have been good. They all have not been good. So I just don't think he'll ever have a great secondary. I think he'll have a career much like an Andrew Haney, and he's going to Boston, which is not going to be super friendly to all that.
So Eno had this tweet right above mine on this guy's timeline, took a photo and said, I hate it when my parents fight, and send it to me. So I appreciate that DM. That was amazing. The one pushback I do have here is I don't think that those arms you're describing quite have exactly the skill set of Kyle Harrison in two ways. One, I think he has the most promising heater of any of those other lefties that you talked about, Manaea and
at 95, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and he was showcasing that even at 94, I'd say, because he lowered his arm angle, 1.9 height adjusted VA, really, or 1.8, which is like 99th percentile. That's Joe Ryan, Brian Wu kind of attack angle, and we've seen that work a lot. He also was more consistent as a starter, getting that heater actually upstairs and hitting that spot. So there is, at 23 years old, I do have some more hope, I believe,
for all
that fastball being a foundation.
For all the 45 grade command grades from Fangraphs on his command, and for some of the belly aching about his command, I do find it interesting that when you look at his location plus, he has a 118 this year. He has a 103 and 104 last 2 years.
Because grades aren't counting the lower arm angle shift this year.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
Well, he has a 118 location plus on his fastball this year. So
that's what I mean. Is like
those old command grades are just
older. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with them. That's the thing. Is like, you talk to me in January when I don't know anything about this year, Kyle Harrison. I'm like, yep, everything you're saying, 100%. That's it. Good. And the other aspect is that I was actually so excited, even though he was going against I think it was the Dodgers. I was like, well, I'm not going to start him, but he just showed the best changeup I've ever seen from him against the Rockies in Coors, where it was all in the same quadrant, down and away from right-handers. Like all of them. It was like 20 of them. And I said, you've never done this. And I'm now so interested to see what's next. And then he gets traded. I'm like, no, not fair. So I don't know. I think there's so many times we see these blips, these moments where guys showcase what they can be. And then when you go interview them, they say, oh yeah, that was a cool moment, wasn't that? You're like, no.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows at this point? I'm really curious to see how it pans out. But I think we got to get out of here, So tell everybody what you're working on right now, what we should be looking out for from you.
Oh, man, I don't know. Just trying to figure things out. Anybody listening here in San Francisco, We are having an auto-new meetup at Bear Bottle on Thursday, June 19th. Thursday, June 19th at Bear Bottle, 6 o'clock after the Giants game. So that's something that's on my radar. Yeah.
Oh, and man. If you haven't met Niv Shah, guys, go meet Niv Shah. He's awesome. He worked here at Pitcherless with us for a couple of years, helping out with our database and everything. And I love the guy. Yeah, you gotta, he's the founder of AutoNew. Go meet him. Go there.
We have Ben Clemens too from Fangraphs. It's gonna be a good time. And then I'm gonna do, as a story, I'm gonna do like a hitter version of what we did today. Look at changes in projections and look at basically maybe try to find 5 hitters you can drop, because sometimes if you get like me, you're just like, oh no, this guy's good. He could be good. Like, just
that's welcome to my fantasy.
So sometimes just identifying a guy and be like, I can drop this guy. It can be really freeing.
Quick decisions. So important. That's why you don't want headache-inducing pitchers stifling the entire roster. Hipsters like YUSEI Kikuchi. And I do also just want to mention here, I can't wait for Eno Sarris to put out the Year of the Cutter article. I'm waiting for it on The Athletic. I know he's got it in his drafts right now. He's just waiting for the right moment. So can't wait for that one. But Eno, thank you so much for joining today, this episode of The Craft. You're such a wonderful guest. So kind and gracious with your time. I am Nick Pollack. And we will talk about the craft of pitching again next week.